Hello, this is Scottish Independence podcast number 103, and this time I spoke with Michael Gray. Michael Gray was involved before the referendum with National Collective, with Business for Scotland, with the Common Weal, and since the referendum has been working with the Common Space and is now a columnist for the national newspaper. We had a chat about what he's doing with the Common Space and about the political situation in general. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll have a wee word with you at the end. Hi Michael, how's it going?
Hi, Michael. I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
And hopefully we can finally get the interview started properly this time. But I tried to get you on before the referendum, but everyone was busy with a number of things, particularly yourself. So now that you're finally on, and I notice you've been keeping very busy still with a lot of other things. For example, the Common Space, I think, is going to be something rather big. So could you tell the listeners what the Common Space is and when the full thing's coming online?
Absolutely. Common Space is a new digital news service for Scotland, and it's been founded out of the Common Weal think tank and campaign. And so the Common Space has 4 full-time journalists writing news, views, opinion, current affairs, 5 days a week, sort of all day, based in Glasgow. So that's been funded through the Common Weal, and about 1,500 people at the moment are paying in sort of subscription money to keep this operation going. And I think it's crucial because we can provide a professional news service that creates a new type of media for Scotland. There was a lot of interest in new media during the referendum, and we were one of the projects that are taking those ideas forward.
Do you mean there's actually people that believe that the Scottish media isn't absolutely magnificent and doesn't serve the public particularly well?
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of people who take that view. There's a lot of people, I think, that have that view of the media across the UK and globally as well. I think the crisis of the mainstream media isn't something that's only the case in Scotland. I think the referendum just sort of put an extra focus on some of the limitations of the mainstream media to react to new technology, to represent the great diversity of views outside of the political bubble. I think in Scotland, with the great energy and interest there is in media, we have a unique opportunity to change the media for the better.
So what is going to be available on Common Space, and how much is it professional with a team of journalists, and how much is it going to be, could someone go on and just post what they've done themselves, or is there an editing board? How is it going to work?
So we have an editor who's Angela Haggerty and 3 full-time staff members at the moment, and those are Liam O'Hare, Ben Ray and myself. And we've been up and running now for exactly 4 weeks. So we've been posting mainly news articles that we write ourselves. We get the sources, we write up the copy, we find the quotes, and we publish towards about at least 10 stories a day on commonspace.scot. So that's the basis of the work we're doing. On top of that, we are aggregating certain opinion pieces or broadcast pieces that are taking place elsewhere online. So it gives people access and links to the other great media projects that are also happening in Scotland. And through that, those 2 pillars, creating our own content and showcasing all of the great work that's happening elsewhere, we can bring a lot of those new media voices together onto the same site, which is great. And we do welcome people to write in sort of opinion pieces. If they have short opinion pieces they want to send in to Angela at common.scot, then we've been publishing those on our website as well.
I spoke with Robin yesterday, and he said there's also going to be a kind of video section to it as well, or a video audio section.
Yeah, we're very ambitious. We've started off with quite an ambitious goal, which is to have a quality daily news service. And those type of operations take a while to build up, just in terms of training and staff and resources. I think we've done quite well in the first 4 weeks. We've had tens of thousands of readers, and we'll probably announce our sort of first month of stats in a week's time, and it's been going very well. But we want to build on that. And we want to expand the site and embed more sort of social media elements to the site, allow people to have conversations, to start groups themselves on the site, and to network, especially in areas of campaigns. So Common Weal as an organisation also has sort of over 30 local campaign groups. So we want to allow those groups of people to be able to discuss things on the site as well. So that's one development that our programmer is working on at the moment. And another area to advance is the one you mentioned on audio and video content. So we're already in discussions with some people about how to improve that side of the site. But I think it's quite early days in terms of video and audio, because I think we'd probably have to improve our sort of financial plan in terms of how we fund the site. And so that's a work in progress.
Yeah, hosting costs can be difficult sometimes. I know better than most. So the reaction's been very good so far. Have you got a target in mind of where you want to get with it in terms of hits, or is it just a case of seeing how it goes?
Well, my personal target was to have 100,000 readers this March, and I think we're on track to be at that kind of level of readership. I think that would be quite a substantial achievement for a new media site. Obviously, there's been a number of sort of trailblazers in this area of Scottish media. Obviously, people like Newsnet Scotland, Bella Caledonia, Wings Over Scotland, National Collective as well, all had great success in building communities and audiences, and those were really powerful tools during the referendum campaign. So I think there's examples there where these type of sites can be really successful and are continuing to be successful. What Common Space can do is be a unique news service, something that's providing news content in the way that a number of these other sites have already provided, either explicitly pro-independence news or have provided great forums for news opinion or news and media analysis. So I think we're providing something new in that sense that's non-partisan. It's not based on any single party. It's not based explicitly from a pro-independence or anti-independence slant. It's more focused on progressive politics in Scotland, setting new agendas, changing the way the media operates, being open and transparent in how we create our stories, and being open to covering new stories and new angles that aren't being covered elsewhere.
Excellent. It really sounds like it's going to be something quite good. So you mentioned National Collective there. You were also involved with them quite a lot before the referendum, and you're probably still involved in some way, I'm not sure. But what do you know what National Collective have in mind post-referendum? What's their plans for the future?
Well, I know they've got a number of different projects that are ongoing. I think one of them is they've taken over Changing Scotland, which has been a sort of regular sort of public arts event that's been run by Jerry Hassan and Jean Urquhart up in Ullapool. So I know they are in charge of basically commissioning the speakers and holding a public event up in Ullapool, which I think is taking place in March. So I think for National Collective, they've still got an opportunity to bring together people who are obviously interested in arts and culture, but also have political views, to provide those people with a platform. I think that's been really healthy for Scotland, to give people like that opportunities to be involved in the debate, rather than have it dominated simply by politicians from the main parties.
To come to the second big point of the interview is you're also working at the National now as well, or you're doing a column for it. So how did you get involved with it, and how's it going, or are you party to these discussions? Because at the beginning the readership was enormous, but then it seemed to take a bit of a dive, and then I don't know exactly where we are at the moment. How's it going?
Well, I write a column every Tuesday, which was today. So that's been great fun, and I think it's another example of a great new media project, which is doing things differently from how some of the media operated during the referendum campaign. And I think, first of all, we have to say if we want a new media, we have to support it. And it's great to be able to write for it every week. Beyond that, I'm not part of the sort of internal discussions about finances at NewsQuest, who own the National, or the Herald and Times news group, which it's a member of. I know its circulation obviously soared in the first week beyond the expectations of its own editor. I know Rich Walker was interviewed with The Guardian this week saying that he still thinks he's fairly positive about how they're mainly working on sort of freelance. So have people like Jamie Maxwell or Peter Geegan freelance news. So they'll face a challenge in the run up to the referendum to see if their circulation increases, and if there's still an appetite for a pro-independence newspaper in Scotland. I'd certainly hope that the answer to that is yes.
Absolutely. Although with all the new media stuff, they've certainly got a lot of competition worked out, but it's a different forum, obviously, as well. But I suppose the next thing, I suppose, is you mentioned the election there coming up. So what's your thoughts before we get to the election, the run-up? It's all becoming very interesting, particularly with no one's quite sure these jokes running around about, if you vote for this, you get that, and if you vote for that, you get this, and it's all very odd at the moment.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I'm still hopeful that there'll be, serious, thoughtful policy discussion about what the outcome will be and what the impact of future policy decisions will be for further powers for Scotland, for what the impacts will be on the tax system, and what any consequences would have for nuclear weapons on the Clyde, and discussions about how any potential coalition negotiations or confidence in supply negotiations would impact in those areas in practical terms. And I think there's certainly been a lack of that so far. There's more of the punch and judy politics of who the winners and losers will be in terms of personalities and playing people off against each other, which I find rather off-putting and shallow, especially since the SNP proposition is to work with the Labour government after the election. So I'd like to see more grown-up discussion from people who are in the SNP and people who are in the Labour Party about how they would plan to work together and what the consequences of that would be for Scotland.
Well, there doesn't seem to be much of a plan to work together. I don't know if you saw the Labour member that was recently tweeting a kind of strategy document, although I don't believe it was actually a Labour document, but their tactical voting thing, and then he deleted all the tweets. Did you see this?
I did, yeah. I was speaking to Lord Mooney today, who's a Labour Lord, former Scottish Labour MP for Kirkcaldy, and he was tweeting that he'd rather be in coalition with the Tories than the SNP. So there is a strand to the Labour Party which hates the SNP, is very tribal, and certainly in Scotland, and would hate the idea of having to cooperate with them. And I think that's gives the game away from their side of things. That if they'd rather work with the Tories, I don't think that would do their electoral chances much good. I think there's certainly hope or opportunity when it comes to English Labour MPs, and whether they'd be more constructive in any conversations. So it'd be interesting to see if any of them put their head above the parapet in the next couple of weeks.
I mean, it's been very interesting. We've had this discussion on a couple of podcasts before, but why is that hatred of Labour so vitriolic towards the SNP? It's quite bizarre. I mean, one of the suggestions we sort of put forward on another episode was that, particularly in Scotland and particularly in the west of Scotland, if you were Labour, you're basically on a gravy train. If the gravy train's a bit strong, you had a career path mapped out because, you could work for the party a bit, then maybe a council, then maybe an MP or an MSP, and it was all worked out. And it was easy running because, you were going to get voted in no matter what happened. But now that they can't really be safe in any particular seat or in any particular area, that's really upset the apple cart. And it could be those reasons, or do you think that's a fair? Do you think that's a fair summation, or do you think there's other things behind it?
I think that's a fair description of what Johann Lamont called the Labour dinosaurs. The dinosaurs, MPs and older members of the Labour Party who grew up with a one-party state in Scotland and haven't yet managed to recognise the new reality in Scottish politics, which is that the Labour Party no longer dominate either Holyrood and aren't dominating in opinion polls for Westminster. And I did find that repeatedly in the referendum, that there was a great body of sort of older politicians in some of the unionist parties who completely failed to engage with a new generation of activists and writers and campaigners who weren't involved in the campaign for the Scottish National Party. They were involved because they saw an opportunity to change Scotland. And I felt that a lot of those sort of dinosaur politicians were rather patronising towards people who got involved in politics in Scotland in the last couple of years, and that attitude, if anything, has put those people off the Labour Party. And I think that might be disastrous for the party in May if those kind of attitudes have pushed those people towards voting SNP.
And do you think Jim Murphy's going to change it much?
No.
Is that okay? Is that full stop? Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure I mean, some of the things has been quite striking from him. For example, the day after a poll said most people in Scotland would like another referendum within 10 years, he